Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sleep Archive. Tonight, we're traveling back nearly 2,000 years to walk the streets of ancient Rome at the height of its power. For the next hour, you'll live a full day as an ordinary Roman citizen, feeling the morning sun on the stones of your Insula apartment, tasting the simple bread and garum of breakfast, hearing the endless noise of the greatest city in the ancient world. Before we step back in time, if you enjoy these historical deep dives, give this video a like and let me know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. Now, get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin your day in ancient Rome, circa 120 CE. You open your eyes as the first pale light of dawn filters through the narrow window of your apartment. It's not a particularly pleasant awakening. The noise never truly stopped during the night. Cartwheels crashing over cobblestones, distant shouts, the rhythmic hammering of a metalworker already at his anvil somewhere below. Rome is a city that barely sleeps, and your Insula, a 5-story apartment building crammed between a dozen others just like it, vibrates with the constant pulse of urban life. You're lying on a simple wooden frame bed, covered with wool blankets that smell faintly of the lanolin they still contain. The mattress beneath you is stuffed with straw and needs replacing. You can feel individual stalks poking through the fabric. In the corner, your wife stirs on her side of the bed, and you hear the soft breathing of your 2 children sleeping in the adjacent alcove, separated from you by nothing more than a curtain. The room is small, perhaps 12 feet square. This single room serves as bedroom, dining area, and workspace for your entire family. The walls are plain plaster, once whitewashed but now grimy with soot from your cooking brazier and the oil lamps you burn each evening. A few pegs driven into the wall hold your spare tunic and your wife's palla. A wooden chest in the corner contains everything else you own. You live on the 3rd floor of this insula, which makes you neither wealthy nor desperately poor. The ground floor apartments, with their direct access to the street and their relative safety from collapse, are occupied by shopkeepers and minor merchants. The apartments above you, on the 4th and 5th floors, house families even poorer than yours, packed into smaller spaces, always 1 month behind on rent. You've heard the landlord's agents pounding on doors up there, threatening eviction. Some nights you've watched from your window as families had their possessions thrown into the street, scavengers already gathering before the last bundle hit the ground. This building, like most insulae in Rome, was thrown up quickly and cheaply by a wealthy investor who cares more about rental income than structural integrity. The walls between apartments are thin. You can hear your neighbor's morning cough, the scrape of his chamber pot, the murmur of his wife telling him something you can't quite make out. Privacy is a concept for the rich. Here, you live wrapped in the sounds and smells of 100 other lives. You swing your legs out of bed, feet touching the cool floor. It's made of wooden planks, uneven and creaking. No mosaics here, no Hippocaust heating running beneath. That's for the wealthy in their domus homes, with their private courtyards and marble decorations. Your floor is practical, simple, and in winter, bitterly cold. The air in the room is thick with the smells of close living, sweat, cooking oil, the chamber pot that hasn't been emptied yet, the faint tang of the fuller's workshop 2 buildings over where they use urine to clean and process wool. It's not pleasant, but it's familiar. This is what Rome smells like when you're not wealthy enough to escape to a villa in the countryside. You pull on your tunic, a simple garment of undyed wool that falls to your knees. It's the same one you've worn for 2 years now, patched at the hem and under the arms. You wrap a belt around your waist, creating the proper drape. In winter you'd add a cloak, but it's late spring now, and the day promises warmth. Your wife rises next, moving quietly to avoid waking the children for a few more precious minutes. She pours water from a clay jug into a basin for you to wash your face and hands. The water is cold and slightly stale. You brought it up from the public fountain yesterday evening, climbing 3 flights of narrow stairs with the heavy jug. It's one of the daily realities of Insula life, No running water above the ground floor. Everything must be carried up and waste carried down. You splash the water on your face, feeling more awake now. Through the window, you can see across to the Insula opposite, close enough that you could almost jump the gap. Almost. A man died trying that last year, drunk and convinced he could make it. Windows everywhere are opening now as the city wakes. Women lean out to shake bedding. Someone empties a chamber pot, and you hear the splash and curse from someone below who didn't get out of the way fast enough. The light is growing stronger. Time to begin your day. You run your fingers through your hair, trying to tame it into something presentable. Bathing will come later, at the thermae this afternoon, but you have a basic routine for mornings. Your wife hands you a stick of frayed wood, which you use to clean your teeth, scrubbing at them with a mixture of crushed pumice and vinegar that stings your gums but leaves your mouth feeling somewhat fresher. There's no privy in your apartment. Like most families in Insulae, you use a chamber pot during the night and make trips to the public latrines during the day. This morning, you'll stop at the latrine on your way to work. It's 3 streets over, a communal facility with marble benches perforated with holes, where 20 men can sit side by side conducting their business while discussing politics or yesterday's chariot races. Your wife begins to stir the fire in the small brazier, a dangerous necessity in these wooden buildings. Fire is the great terror of Insulae dwellers. These structures burn regularly, sometimes taking entire city blocks with them. The Vigiles, Rome's fire brigade of 7,000 men, do what they can, but mostly they arrive in time to demolish surrounding buildings to create fire breaks. Last year, an Insula 4 streets from here burned in the night. 16 people died, trapped on upper floors as the staircases became chimneys of flame. But you need the fire for your morning meal, so your wife carefully feeds small pieces of charcoal into the brazier, blowing on the embers from last night until they glow and catch. The smoke rises toward the ceiling, finding its way out through gaps in the roof tiles. Your eyes water slightly. You're used to it. Your children are awake now. The boy, Marcus, 7 years old, and the girl, Julia, 5. They roll off their sleeping mat, rubbing their eyes. There's no school today for Marcus. You can't afford a private tutor, and while there are schools in Rome, they cost money you don't always have. Instead, he'll spend part of the day with you, learning your trade. Julia will stay with her mother, learning the work of maintaining a household, which in your circumstances means nearly everything must be done by hand. You lean out the window for a moment, looking down into the narrow street below. It's barely wide enough for 2 people to pass each other, and already it's crowded. A baker's boy hurries past with a basket of loaves balanced on his head. 2 men argue about something, their voices rising. A woman calls down from a window to a fish seller, negotiating a price. The street is paved with large stone blocks, worn smooth by centuries of feet and wheels, slick with things you'd rather not think about too carefully. The Insula walls rise like canyon sides on either side of the street, 5 and 6 stories tall, the upper floors overhanging the lower ones, blocking out much of the sky. Laundry hangs from windows, dripping onto the street below. A cat picks its way along a ledge. The sound is constant, a urban roar made up of thousands of individual sounds layered together. Voices, footsteps, cartwheels, hammering, sawing, barking dogs, crying children. This is Rome, not the Rome of marble temples and triumphal arches, though those exist. This is the Rome where most people actually live. Crowded, noisy, dirty, dangerous, and absolutely alive with human energy. You turn back into the room. Time for breakfast. The morning meal is simple. Your wife has laid out what you'll eat on the small wooden table that serves all your family's needs. A loaf of bread, dark and coarse, purchased yesterday from the bakery on the corner. A small piece of cheese, hard and salty. A few dried figs, and a cup of watered wine, because even in the morning, Romans rarely drink water straight. The wine is cheap and sour, But mixed with water, it's palatable enough and safer than the questionable water from some of the public fountains. You break off a piece of bread and dip it in the wine to soften it. The bread is gritty, made from barley and wheat, and you can feel the tiny fragments of millstone grit that inevitably get mixed in during grinding. You'll wear down your teeth eating bread like this, year after year, but it's filling and it's affordable. Many Romans of your class eat bread at every meal. It's the foundation of your diet. The cheese is goat's milk, aged until it's hard enough to grate. Your wife produces a small clay pot of garum, the fermented fish sauce that's as common in Rome as salt, maybe more so. You dip your bread in it, the intense, salty, almost sweet flavor, transforming the plain bread into something more interesting. Garum is everywhere in Roman cooking. Made from fermented fish intestines and left in the sun for months until it breaks down into a pungent liquid, it sounds revolting but tastes extraordinary. Even the poorest families usually have a jar of low-grade garum. The wealthy might pay a fortune for garum sociorum, made from mackerel in Spain. But yours is local, serviceable, and cheap. Your children eat quietly, chewing their bread, sipping their heavily watered wine. The figs are a treat. They were expensive, but your wife found a vendor yesterday willing to sell older stock at a discount. The sweetness bursts on your tongue, a pleasant contrast to the salt of the garum. This meal, the entaculum, is not meant to be substantial. It's fuel to get you started. The main meal of your day, the Cena, won't come until this afternoon, sometime between the 8th and 9th hour. Roughly 2 or 3 in the afternoon by our modern reckoning. Time in Rome is counted differently than you're used to. The day, from sunrise to sunset, is divided into 12 hours. But the length of those hours changes with the seasons. In summer, each hour is longer. In winter, each hour is shorter. Right now, in late spring, the hours are approximately equal to your 60-minute hours, but the concept is fluid, measured by sundials scattered throughout the city and announced by the sun's position. You finish your bread and cheese, drain your cup of watered wine. Your wife wraps a small bundle for you to take. More bread, a handful of olives, and a small onion. This will be your prandium, the midday meal you'll eat during a break from work. She ties it in a cloth and hands it to you. The family doesn't eat together in any formal sense. Your wife is still moving around the small room, organizing, tidying, preparing for her day. She'll spend hours at the public fountain later, gossiping with other women while they wait their turn to fill their jugs. She'll shop for tonight's meal at the market stalls. She'll mend your son's torn tunic. If she's fortunate, she'll have time to visit the baths herself this afternoon. Though women's hours at the thermae are more restricted than men's, usually the early afternoon before the men arrive. You stand, brush crumbs from your tunic, and pick up your bundle of food. Time to go to work. Leaving your apartment means navigating the staircase, which is narrow, dark, and treacherous. It's built against the outside of the building, open to the elements, with worn stone steps that are slippery when wet. There's no banister. You keep one hand against the wall as you descend, your feet knowing the rhythm of the uneven steps. The stairwell smells of urine. It's used as a latrine by people too tired or too drunk to make it to the public facilities. The landlord doesn't clean it. Nobody cleans it. It just accumulates, and you try not to think about it as you make your way down. You pass doorways to other apartments. From one comes the sound of a baby crying, inconsolable despite the mother's soothing voice. From another, the sharp smell of onions frying in old oil. On the landing between the 3rd and 2nd floor, an elderly man sits on a stool, catching his breath. He nods at you. He lives on the 5th floor, and the climb is getting harder for him each year. At the ground level, the character of the building changes. The ground floor apartments have proper doors opening onto the street, many of them converted into shops and workshops. There's a fuller's establishment, where cloth is cleaned and processed. The smell of urine is even stronger here because fullers use it as a cleaning agent, buying it by the jar from public latrines. Next to that is a small tavern, just opening, where the owner is setting out cups and amphorae of wine. A baker's shop occupies the corner position, the most valuable spot, with its bread oven built into the wall, venting into the street. The smell of baking bread is wonderful, cutting through the less pleasant odors. You step out into the street and immediately have to press yourself against the wall as a mule-drawn cart rumbles past, its iron-shod wheels clattering over the stones. Officially, wheeled traffic is banned from Rome's streets during daylight hours to reduce congestion. But the rule is constantly flouted, especially in the early morning hours. The driver doesn't even glance at you as he passes, heading for some delivery that can't wait. The street is already busy. A slave carries a palanquin bearing a wealthy woman, curtains drawn. A group of men in togas, probably heading to the forum, walk purposefully, their conversation animated. Street vendors are setting up their stalls, calling out their wares. A man sells sausages, already cooking on a small brazier. Another has a cart full of cheap pottery. A beggar sits against a wall, blind or pretending to be, hand outstretched. You orient yourself and begin walking. You have perhaps a 20-minute walk ahead of you to reach your workplace. The streets of Rome are a maze, winding and narrow, not laid out on any sensible grid. You've learned the route through repetition, turning here, cutting through there, avoiding certain streets where the gangs of young toughs make it dangerous to pass. As you walk, you're careful where you step. The streets are filthy. There's no municipal garbage collection. People throw waste from their windows. Dead animals rot in corners. The sewers, where they exist, are open channels running down the center of streets. You hop over one now, a trickle of foul water carrying things you don't examine closely. The sun is climbing higher, and the city is fully awake now. The sound is incredible. Voices in Latin, Greek, Aramaic, Celtic, German, a dozen languages all mixed together. Rome is the capital of an empire that stretches from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria, and all of that empire is represented here in these streets. You pass a vendor selling spices from the east, the scents of cinnamon and pepper, exotic and expensive. You pass a group of North African merchants, their skin dark, their robes foreign. You pass German slaves with blonde hair and pale eyes, captured in wars along the Rhine and brought here in chains. This diversity is normal to you. Rome has always been this way in your lifetime. The city contains perhaps 1 million people, possibly more, crammed into an area barely capable of supporting half that number. It's the largest city in the world, and it shows. Every street is crowded. Every building is overcrowded. And yet somehow it works. This vast machine of human civilization, grinding along day after day. You pass the public latrine and duck inside. It's a large room with marble benches lining 3 walls, holes cut at regular intervals. Perhaps 15 men are already seated, conducting their business while chatting amiably. There's no privacy here either. This is a social space. You nod to a few acquaintances and find an empty spot. A channel of running water flows beneath the bench, carrying waste away to the sewers. Another channel of clean water runs in front of the bench with communal sponges on sticks for cleaning yourself. It's actually quite sophisticated, this Roman sanitation system, not pleasant by modern standards, but far advanced beyond what most civilizations manage. You finish quickly and continue on your way to work. You're a coppersmith, a skilled trade you learned from your father, who learned it from his father. Your workshop is rented, a single room on the ground floor of another insula, opening directly onto a slightly wider street in the Subura district. It's not a wealthy neighborhood. The Subura is known for its workers, its small shops, its brothels, and its rough character. But it's also vibrant and alive, full of people making their living with their hands and their wits. Your workshop is perhaps 15 feet on each side, with a workbench, an anvil, a small forge, and racks of tools that represent years of investment. Hammers of different sizes, tongs, files, punches, and chisels. On shelves along the walls are pieces in various stages of completion. A set of cooking pots ordered by a merchant, decorative bands for wooden boxes, a small statue of Mercury that a shopkeeper commissioned, oil lamps waiting to be fitted with handles. You're not wealthy from this work, but you're also not at the bottom of Roman society. You have a skill that people need: copper vessels for cooking, for storage, for religious rituals. You can work bronze too, the alloy of copper and tin that's harder and takes a better polish. You make oil lamps, which every household uses. You repair damaged goods, resoldering broken handles, hammering out dents. Your apprentice arrives shortly after you, a 15-year-old boy whose father is paying you to teach him the trade. He's eager but clumsy, and you spend the first part of the morning correcting his grip on the hammer, showing him again how to heat the metal until it's the right color, not too hot, not too cool, and then how to strike it precisely to shape it without cracking it. The forge is going now, charcoal glowing red, and the workshop heats up quickly despite the open front. You strip to a light tunic, knowing you'll be sweating soon. The first project of the day is finishing a set of 3 cooking pots. You've already raised the basic forms, hammering flat sheets of copper over wooden forms until they took the rounded shape. Now you're fitting handles, careful work that requires drilling small holes through the copper, riveting the bronze handles in place, and making sure the attachments are solid enough to bear the weight of the pot when full. The work is repetitive, but requires concentration. One slip with the drill and you've ruined hours of work. You fall into the rhythm of it, the clang of hammer on metal, the hiss of hot copper dipped in water to cool it, the scrape of files smoothing rough edges. Through the open front of your shop, you watch the street. This is one of the pleasures of a ground floor workshop. You're part of the street life. Customers can stop and inquire about your work. You can see the endless theater of Roman street life passing before you. A woman stops to examine your finished oil lamps. You put down your hammer and discuss prices with her. Your Latin is the rough dialect of the working classes, not the polished rhetoric of the educated elite. She haggles, as everyone does. You expected this. Eventually, you agree on a price for 3 lamps, and she promises to return with the money tomorrow. You don't ask for payment up front. In this neighborhood, reputation matters. If she doesn't pay, word will spread, and she'll find it hard to do business anywhere in the district. A colleague from 2 streets over stops in to chat. He's a potter, and you sometimes collaborate on projects that require both your skills. He's heard that a wealthy household in the Esquiline is redecorating and might need both pottery and metalwork. You agree to visit together tomorrow to see if you can secure the commission. Contacts like this are vital. Most of your work comes through word of mouth, through the network of craftsmen and merchants and household slaves who actually make the purchasing decisions for their wealthy masters. The morning passes in work. The sun climbs higher, visible through your doorway as it moves across the sky. The street grows more crowded. The noise level increases. Vendors call their wares. A fight breaks out somewhere nearby, shouts and the sound of blows, then silence. A religious procession passes, priests in white robes carrying an image of Jupiter, chanting hymns in Latin so old that even you can barely understand the words. Your son appears, having been sent by your wife with a message. A customer came by the Insula looking for you, asking about repairing a large bronze bowl that cracked. You send word back that you'll visit the customer's home this evening to assess the work. The hours pass. By the time the sun suggests midday, you're hungry and ready for a break. You bank the forge, covering the coals so they'll stay hot but won't burn out, and tell your apprentice to mind the shop while you go to eat. Your midday meal, the prandium, is simple and quick. You're not going far. Just across the street is a Thermopolium, one of Rome's ubiquitous fast food restaurants. The Thermopolium is a narrow building with a marble counter opening onto the street. Set into the counter are large clay jars, dolia, that once might have kept food hot. but here simply serve as storage. The proprietor, a freedman from Greece who still speaks Latin with a thick accent, has been running this establishment for a decade. You've been eating here for years. The offerings today are what they always are. A thick stew of lentils and barley, flavored with garum and onions, sausages grilled over charcoal, bread, of course, olives, hard-boiled eggs, wine, both plain and spiced. The food is simple, cheap, and filling. You order the stew and bread, and add a cup of wine mixed with water. The proprietor ladles the stew into a bowl, hands you a wooden spoon, and you stand at the counter to eat. There are no tables, no chairs. This is fast food in its most literal sense. You eat standing, quickly, and move on. The stew is hot and salty, thick enough that the spoon stands up in it. You can taste garum prominently, along with the earthy flavor of lentils and the bite of raw onions. It's not sophisticated cooking, but it's nourishing, and it fills your belly. The bread helps, and you use pieces of it to soak up the last of the stew from the bowl. Around you, a dozen other workers are doing the same thing. A mason covered in limestone dust, a wool dyer with purple-stained hands, a clerk from one of the warehouses near the Tiber, his tunic cleaner and his manner slightly superior. Everyone eats quickly, exchanges a few words, and moves on. The city is too busy to linger long over a midday meal. You finish, wipe your mouth on a cloth, and head back to the workshop. The afternoon is the busiest part of your working day, and you still have 3 hours of good light ahead of you before you'll close for the day and head to the baths. The afternoon is hot. Your workshop, despite the shade from the building opposite, becomes an oven. The forge adds its heat, and soon you're soaked with sweat. This is the hardest part of the day physically, but also the most productive. You're working on a commission that could lead to more work, a decorative copper panel to be mounted on a wooden chest. The design calls for you to chase patterns into the copper, using small chisels and punches to create raised designs. This is detailed work. You've sketched the pattern onto the copper with chalk, grapevines, a common motif, twisted and intertwined. You work slowly, using a small hammer to tap the punch, which pushes the metal from behind, creating the raised design on the front. Each tap must be precise. Too hard and you might punch through the copper. Too soft, and the design won't show clearly. Your apprentice watches, learning. Someday he'll be able to do this work, but not yet. For now, you have him working on simpler tasks, filing rough edges on copper discs that will become the bases for oil lamps. The street outside remains busy, though the character changes with the sun's position. More women appear, shopping for their evening meals. Slaves hurry past on errands for their masters. A tax collector makes his rounds, and you see shopkeepers ducking into the backs of their establishments to avoid him. A colleague stops by, a brass worker, and you discuss the possibility of collaborating on a large project. A temple is being renovated in the Forum Boreum, and they're looking for craftsmen to create decorative elements. This could be lucrative work, but it would require you to temporarily close your shop and work full-time on the temple. You'd need to trust that other work would be waiting when the temple commission was finished. These are the calculations of a small business owner in ancient Rome. As the afternoon wears on, you complete the decorative panel. It's good work, you think. The grapevines are clearly defined, the leaves properly shaped. You set it aside to show the customer when they come to collect it. The sun is getting lower now. You can tell by the angle of light in the street, by the color of the sky visible above the buildings. It's getting close to the 8th hour, perhaps 2 o'clock by modern reckoning. Time to start thinking about closing the workshop for the day. You complete one more small task, attaching a replacement handle to a cooking pot that a customer dropped off yesterday. You test the handle, pulling on it firmly. It holds. Good. Another job completed. Your apprentice sweeps the floor, gathering copper shavings and filings. These will be saved, melted down, and reused. Nothing is wasted. Even the ashes from the forge will be sold to fullers, who use them in their trade. You bank the forge completely now, ensuring it's safe. Fire is too dangerous to be careless about. You close and lock the wooden shutters across the front of your shop. It's not much security. A determined thief could break in easily. But you've taken what precautions you can, and theft, while common, isn't universal. Besides, your tools are too heavy to steal easily, and your finished goods are mostly too bulky to be carried off without being noticed. You send your apprentice home and head back toward your insula, but you're not going home yet. It's time for one of the daily rituals that defines Roman life. You're going to the baths. The public baths, or thermae, are as essential to Roman life as the forum or the temples. Every neighborhood has at least one bathhouse, ranging from small private establishments to massive imperial complexes like the baths of Trajan or Caracalla. You're heading to a mid-sized facility, a local bathhouse that charges a quadrans for entry, roughly the price of a loaf of bread. It's affordable for working men like you, though the very poorest Romans can't always spare even that small amount. The walk to the baths takes you through slightly better neighborhoods. The buildings here are still mostly insulae, but they're better maintained, the streets a bit wider, the shops a bit more prosperous. You pass a fuller's establishment where they're processing white togas for wealthy clients. The smell of urine and chalk is strong. You pass a workshop where a craftsman is gilding a statue, the thin sheets of gold leaf catching the afternoon light. The bathhouse announces itself from a block away by the crowd gathering outside and the steady stream of smoke rising from its furnaces. It's a substantial building, occupying an entire city block, with high walls and small windows. The entrance is impressive, with columns and a formal doorway where an attendant collects your quadrans and waves you in. Inside, the noise is incredible. Voices echo off marble and tile. You can hear shouts from the Palaestra, the exercise yard where men are wrestling and playing ball games. You can hear the splash of water from the pools. You can hear the slap of strigils on skin as men scrape off oil and dirt. The bathhouse is not a quiet, contemplative place. It's loud, crowded, and boisterous. You head first to the Tepidarium, the changing room. It's a large space with niches in the walls where bathers store their clothes and belongings. Theft is common here, so you've only brought what you're wearing. You strip off your tunic, fold it, and place it in an empty niche. You're completely naked now, as are the 100 or so other men in various stages of bathing. Nudity doesn't bother Romans. The human body is natural, nothing to be ashamed of. In the baths, everyone from senators to slaves bathes naked. Of course, the wealthier Romans bring their own slaves to guard their clothes and assist with bathing, while you guard your own property and scrape your own skin. But the basic experience is the same. You collect a strigil, a curved bronze tool for scraping oil and dirt from skin, and a small flask of olive oil from your belongings, and head toward the exercise area. The Palaestra is an open courtyard surrounded by colonnades. Here, men are engaging in various forms of exercise. This is considered an essential part of the bathing process. You need to work up a sweat before the serious bathing begins. Some men are wrestling, grappling, and straining on the sandy ground. Others are playing ball games, tossing a leather ball back and forth. A few elderly men simply walk in circles around the courtyard, getting what exercise their aged bodies can manage. You join a group playing Trigon, a 3-player game where you throw a ball rapidly between players, trying to catch your partners off guard. The exercise is vigorous. Soon you're breathing hard, sweating freely. This is the goal. Romans believe that exercise opens the pores, allows the body to release impurities. The medical theories may be questionable, but the reality is that exercise before bathing does make the subsequent cleaning more effective. After perhaps 20 minutes, you're thoroughly heated and sweating. You pause, catching your breath, and another bather takes your place in the game. Time to move to the first bathing chamber. You enter the Tepidarium, the warm room. This is a transition space between the cool air outside and the intense heat that's coming. The room is heated to a comfortable warmth by the hypocaust system, which circulates hot air from furnaces beneath the floor and inside the walls. You can actually feel the warmth radiating up through the tiles under your feet. You rub olive oil onto your skin, working it into every part of your body. This is standard practice. The oil will mix with sweat and dirt, and then you'll scrape it all off with the strigil. It's an effective, if somewhat messy, way to clean yourself. The Tepidarium is crowded. Men sit on benches along the walls, conversing, laughing, arguing about chariot races or politics. A barber has set up in one corner, offering haircuts and shaves. You recognize several men from your neighborhood. You exchange greetings, a few words about the weather, about work. The baths are as much a social space as a cleansing one. After you've warmed up sufficiently, you move to the Caldarium, the hot room. The Caldarium is intensely hot. The hypocaust beneath is roaring, and the room is filled with steam from the hot water pool and from basins of water thrown onto the heated floors. You can barely see across the room through the haze. The heat hits you like a physical blow when you enter. You're wearing sculpania now, wooden-soled sandals to protect your feet from the heated floor, which would otherwise burn you. The tiles are so hot that you can feel the heat through the thick wooden soles. Men move carefully, placing their feet deliberately. This heat is wonderful after a day of work. You can feel it penetrating deep into your muscles, easing the aches from hours of hammering copper. Your pores open fully. Sweat pours off you, mixing with the oil on your skin. You find a space near the wall and sit on a stone bench, letting the heat work on you. Around you, other men are doing the same. Some are chatting quietly. Others sit in silence, eyes closed, simply absorbing the heat. A few are having their backs scrubbed by slaves they've brought along, the slaves using strigils to scrape away the oil, sweat, and accumulated grime. After a few minutes, you begin your own cleaning process. Using the strigil, you scrape down your arms, your legs, your torso. The mixture of oil and dirt comes away in grimy streaks. You do what you can, reach yourself, then trade with a neighbor, each of you scraping the other's back. It's a practical arrangement. Nobody can clean their own back thoroughly. The Caldarium has a small pool of hot water, and after scraping yourself clean, you slide into it. The water is almost uncomfortably hot, but it's wonderful. You can feel the last tension leaving your muscles. A few other men are soaking in the pool, and you exchange nods. This is one of the great pleasures of Roman life, and it's available to almost everyone. A wealthy senator in his private bath might have fancier surroundings, better quality oil, slaves attending to his every need. But the basic experience of heat, water, and relaxation is the same. The baths are one of the few truly democratic spaces in Rome. After perhaps 10 minutes in the hot pool, you're thoroughly heated and cleaned. Time for the final stage, the cold plunge. You exit the Caldarium and walk through a short hallway to the Frigidarium, the cold room. The contrast is shocking. From the intense heat, you step into a space that's deliberately kept cool. The hypocaust doesn't extend here. The room is open to the air through high windows. At the center of the Frigidarium is a large pool of cold water. Some bathhouses have water piped directly from cold springs or aqueducts. Others have water that's been allowed to cool naturally. Either way, it's shockingly cold compared to the Caldarium. You don't hesitate. Hesitation makes it worse. You walk to the edge of the pool and dive in. The cold is incredible, taking your breath away. Your skin, superheated from the Caldarium, reacts violently. You feel every nerve ending wake up. You surface, gasping, and immediately feel invigorated. Romans believe this hot-cold cycle is essential for health. The heat opens the pores and cleanses them. The cold seals them shut and tones the body. Whether the medical theory is sound is debatable, but the sensation is undeniably refreshing. You swim a few strokes across the pool. Other men are doing the same, some laughing at the shock of the cold water, others swimming seriously. You pull yourself out of the pool, water streaming from your body, and immediately feel the air cool on your wet skin. It's a wonderful sensation. You're clean now, truly clean. The combination of oil, scraping, heat, and cold water has removed days of accumulated dirt and sweat. Your skin feels fresh, almost new. You make your way back to the Tepidarium to dry off and dress. In the changing room, you use a linen cloth to dry yourself, then pull your tunic back on. It feels strange to put on clothes after the thorough cleaning, and the tunic seems dirty against your clean skin. But this is the reality. Clean clothes are a luxury. You'll wear this tunic for several more days before your wife washes it in the public fountain. As you're dressing, you chat with a neighbor who works as a mason. He tells you about a job he's working on, renovating a rich man's house. The pay is good, he says, but the owner is demanding and cheap, arguing about every expense. You commiserate. Difficult customers are a universal complaint. You leave the bathhouse feeling refreshed and relaxed. The late afternoon sun is warm on your face. You have perhaps 2 hours of daylight left, time to head to the forum to see what's happening, maybe buy something for dinner, and then home. The Roman Forum is the heart of the city, though by this time of day, the serious business of law courts and Senate meetings has concluded. What remains is a more casual atmosphere. Merchants closing their shops, people strolling, meeting friends, making plans for the evening. You enter the forum from the east, walking along the Via Sacra, the sacred way that runs through the forum's length. The buildings around you are the most impressive in Rome. Temples to Jupiter, Saturn, Vesta, Castor, and Pollux. The Senate House, the Curia, where the most powerful men in the world make decisions that affect millions of lives. The Basilica Aemilia, where courts still sit in judgment. Triumphal arches commemorating military victories. Columns inscribed with laws and decrees. But you're not here as a tourist in your own city. You're here as a Roman going about his evening business. The forum is also a marketplace, and the shops along its edges sell goods from across the empire. You're looking for something specific. Your wife asked you to buy some good fish for tonight's dinner if you could find it at a reasonable price. The fishmongers cluster at the Forum Piscarium, the fish forum, adjacent to the main forum. You make your way there, navigating the crowds. The forum is still busy despite the late hour. Groups of men in togas stand in conversation, their body language suggesting intense discussions of politics or business. Slaves hurry past on final errands for their masters. Beggars work the edges, hoping for a coin from someone feeling charitable. Street performers entertain small crowds, hoping for tips. A man with a trained monkey draws laughs. A storyteller recounts tales from Homer in Greek, his audience rapt. You reach the fish market and survey the offerings. The fish have been on display all day, and the late afternoon is the best time to buy because vendors are willing to negotiate rather than be left with unsold stock that will spoil by morning. You examine several offerings and settle on 3 small fish, probably caught yesterday in the Tiber or brought in from the coast. The vendor quotes a price. You counter with a lower offer. She looks offended but comes down slightly. You meet in the middle, and coins change hands. With the fish wrapped in leaves, you have one more errand. Your wife also asked for some garum if you could find a good price. You know a vendor who sells various qualities, and you make your way to his stall. The conversation follows the familiar pattern of haggling. He praises his product, imported from Spain, the finest garum in Rome. You express skepticism and point out some lower quality jars. Eventually you agree on a price for a small jar. It's not Garum sociorum, the extremely expensive variety, but it's decent quality, and it will last your family a month. Your errands complete, you allow yourself a few minutes to simply observe the forum. This is where history is made, where triumphs are celebrated, where the fate of the empire is decided. And it's also where ordinary Romans like you buy fish for dinner. These two realities coexist without contradiction. The sun is lower now, casting long shadows across the marble and stone. The crowds are thinning as people head home for dinner. You should do the same. Walking back through the streets in the early evening, you notice how the city changes character. The shops are closing, wooden shutters pulled across openings, goods secured. But the streets aren't becoming quiet. If anything, they're getting louder as the ban on wheeled traffic lifts and carts begin rumbling through, making deliveries that couldn't happen during the day. You have to press against buildings several times to let carts pass, their wheels barely fitting through the narrow streets. The drivers curse and shout at pedestrians to move. Their mules and oxen strain against their loads. The sound of iron-shod wheels on stone is deafening in the confined spaces between buildings. Taverns are opening for the evening trade. From their doorways comes the smell of cooking food, the sound of conversation and laughter. These establishments have a rough reputation. They're frequented by the poor, by slaves, by men looking for cheap wine and cheaper company. Respectable Romans wouldn't be seen in them, but they do a thriving business nonetheless. You pass a street corner where dice players have gathered, crouched around their game, coins stacked beside them. Gambling is officially illegal but universally practiced. You watch for a moment as one player throws, groans at the result, and pushes coins across to his opponent. A prostitute calls out to you from a doorway, offering her services. You shake your head politely and move on. Prostitution is legal and common in Rome, regulated and taxed. The women who practice it range from expensive courtesans entertaining wealthy clients to desperate street workers like this one, charging a few coins for their services in alleyways or cheap rooms. Children are still playing in the streets despite the fading light. A group of boys chase each other, shouting. A girl bounces a ball against a wall. In the Insula you pass, you can hear families preparing for the evening meal. The smell of cooking is everywhere. Olive oil heating, onions frying, bread warming. You reach your own insula and climb the stairs carefully in the dim light. 3 flights up. The stairwell is even darker now, and you place your feet cautiously, knowing the steps are uneven. You can hear your neighbors through the thin walls. An argument in one apartment, a baby crying in another. Someone practicing a speech or recitation, the Latin words echoing in the stairwell. You reach your door and push it open. Your wife looks up from the brazier where she's preparing the evening meal. Your children run to you, and you hand over the fish and garum. Your wife examines them, nods approvingly. Good purchases, she says. You'll eat well tonight. Your wife has been preparing for the Cena, the main meal of the day, for the past hour. The small brazier is going strong, and she has a pot suspended over it, simmering with vegetables and barley. The fish you brought will be grilled separately, seasoned with garum and herbs. The family gathers around the low wooden table. There are no chairs in your apartment. You have stools and cushions. Your children sit on the floor. The table is set with simple pottery dishes, wooden spoons, and cups. No forks. You'll eat with your fingers and spoon, as Romans do. Your wife brings the first course, the vegetables and barley, flavored with onions and garum, along with more of the dark bread. You all eat from a common bowl, tearing pieces of bread to scoop up the vegetables. The food is simple but flavorful. The garum adds a depth of taste that transforms basic ingredients. Next comes the fish, grilled over the brazier's coals until the skin is crispy. Your wife has rubbed them with garlic and more garum before cooking. You divide the 3 small fish among the 4 of you. Not a large portion each, but sufficient. You eat carefully, picking out the tiny bones, giving the best pieces to your children. The meal is accompanied by more watered wine. Your children drink theirs heavily diluted, more water than wine. You and your wife drink yours less diluted but still mixed. Drinking wine straight, unmixed with water, is considered barbaric, something only Germans and other barbarians do. As you eat, you talk about the day. Your son tells you about a game he played with other children in the street. Your daughter asks why she can't go to school like some of the richer children she's seen. Your wife tells you about an encounter at the fountain, gossip about a neighbor caught in an affair. You tell them about your work, about the commission you completed, about the possibility of temple work. This is your family time, squeezed into this small room in this crowded building in this massive city. Despite the poverty, despite the crowding, despite the daily struggle, there's warmth here. You're together. You're fed. You're safe for another day. After the meal, your wife clears the dishes, taking them to the public fountain tomorrow to wash them. For now, she wipes them clean with a cloth. She banks the brazier, reducing it to coals that will last through the night. Your children unroll their sleeping mat and prepare for bed. The sun has set now, and darkness is falling. Your apartment has a few small oil lamps, and you light one, the flame casting flickering shadows. The lamp is one you made yourself, copper with a bronze handle, filled with olive oil with a wick of twisted fiber. The light it provides is dim but sufficient. You have a few options for the rest of the evening. You're tired from the day's work, but sleep won't come for another few hours. Romans typically stay up for a while after dinner, talking, sometimes playing games, occasionally reading if they're literate and can afford books. In your case, you're literate in a basic way, enough to keep accounts for your business, but you don't own any books. They're far too expensive for someone of your means. Instead, you might join some neighbors outside. On warm evenings, people gather in the street to escape their stuffy apartments. You grab a small flask of wine and head downstairs. In the street, a group of men have gathered, sitting on stools they've brought from their apartments. They're neighbors, men you've known for years. A baker, a fuller, a porter who works at the docks, a clerk from a warehouse, working men like yourself. You join them, accepting a cup of wine from the communal jug they're passing around. The conversation is relaxed, ranging from complaints about work to speculation about political events to crude jokes that make everyone laugh. Someone mentions the upcoming races at the Circus Maximus. Rome is divided into fierce factions supporting different chariot racing teams, identified by their colors: blues, greens, reds, and whites. The rivalry is intense, sometimes violent. Your group is mixed, some supporting the blues, others the greens, and the good-natured arguing about which team will win next week's races grows heated before dissolving into laughter. Another topic is the emperor. Hadrian is ruling now, generally considered competent and just, though like all emperors, he's remote, a figure of immense power who has little direct impact on your daily life. The conversation is cautiously positive. You never know who might be listening, and criticizing the emperor, even in casual conversation, can be dangerous. The talk turns to local matters: the quality of bread from the new baker on the corner, whether the landlord will finally repair the leak in the roof that's been dripping into the fifth-floor apartments, the scandal of the merchant's wife caught with a gladiator, the price of olive oil, which has gone up again. This is the social life available to you, not the sophisticated dinner parties of the wealthy, with reclining couches and multiple courses and entertainment, not the philosophical discussions at wealthy homes. Just men sitting in a street, drinking cheap wine, talking about the small concerns that make up their lives. After an hour or so, people begin drifting back to their apartments. Work starts early tomorrow, and rest is necessary. You say your good nights and climb the stairs once more to your apartment. Back in your apartment, your children are already asleep on their mat, curled together for warmth. Your wife has extinguished the brazier completely, a necessary precaution. Fire at night in a wooden building full of sleeping people is too dangerous to risk. You bar the door, a simple wooden beam that slides into brackets. It won't stop a determined intruder, but it provides some security. Theft is common in the Insulae, especially on the upper floors where it's harder to hear or intervene. By the light of your single oil lamp, you and your wife prepare for bed. She takes down her hair, which she's worn bound up all day. You remove your belt and outer tunic, sleeping in your under tunic. In winter, you'd sleep in everything you own, piled under every blanket and hide you possess. In late spring, you need less insulation. You check that your small savings, a handful of coins, are still hidden in their spot behind a loose stone in the wall. The money represents weeks of work and careful saving. It's your emergency fund, protection against illness or injury or a month when work is scarce. Your wife climbs onto the bed first, and you join her. The straw mattress rustles beneath you. The wool blanket, scratchy but warm, covers you both. The lamp is still burning, and you lie watching the shadows on the ceiling for a moment. Through the thin walls, you can hear your neighbors. Someone is coughing, a deep, persistent cough that speaks of illness. Someone else is praying, the words of a traditional Roman prayer to the household gods. From the street below, you can still hear the rumble of carts, the shouts of drivers, the eternal noise of Rome that never entirely stops. Your wife murmurs something about needing to go to the fountain early tomorrow before the crowds. You respond with a drowsy agreement. The day has been long, the work hard, and sleep is pulling at you. You reach over and extinguish the oil lamp, pinching the wick between wetted fingers. The room goes dark, though not entirely. Moonlight filters through the small window, and from other windows across the street, you can see the glow of other lamps still burning. You settle into the bed, finding the least uncomfortable position. Your wife curls against you, and you can feel her warmth. Outside, the city continues. Rome never really sleeps. But you do, eventually, drifting off to the sound of cartwheels and distant voices, secure in your small room high above the streets. Tomorrow, you'll wake and do it all again. The endless cycle of work, meals, baths, sleep, the rhythm of life in ancient Rome. Even in sleep, Rome doesn't let you forget it's there. The city at night has its own soundscape, different from the day but no less insistent. The rumble of carts is constant. With daylight traffic restrictions lifted, the city's supply system comes alive, delivery carts bringing food from the countryside. Construction materials being moved to building sites, merchants transporting goods from warehouses to shops. The iron-shod wheels on stone cobbles create a grinding, rattling noise that penetrates even into your third-floor apartment. Sometimes the sound swells into your dreams, transformed into something else. Thunder, perhaps, or the sound of the sea, though you've never actually heard the sea. Your sleeping mind incorporates the noise, weaving it into whatever you're dreaming about. There are voices, too, rising from the street, the drivers shouting at their animals, drunks singing on their way home from taverns, arguments that sometimes escalate into fights. You wake once, briefly, to the sound of steel on steel and shouting, but it fades quickly and you drift back to sleep. Street violence is common enough that unless it's at your door, you don't investigate. From other apartments in your insula, the sounds of human life continue through the night. A baby crying, the mother's soothing voice, a couple arguing in fierce whispers, the creak of a bed as someone turns in their sleep, a chamber pot being used. The thin walls hide nothing. Once during the night, you wake fully, needing to use your own chamber pot. You feel your way to it in the darkness, use it, and return to bed. Your wife doesn't stir. She's learned to sleep through almost anything. There are other sounds too. Once you're awake and listening, the scurry of rats in the walls. Rome is full of rats, living on the city's garbage, thriving in the darkness. You hear one gnawing on something, probably in your neighbor's apartment or possibly in your own. You'll check in the morning, make sure nothing important has been damaged. From somewhere distant, you hear a dog barking. Then others join in, a cascade of barking that spreads through the neighborhood before dying out again. You've heard that dogs can sense things humans can't, and you wonder what disturbed them before deciding you don't care. You're tired, and morning will come soon enough. The moon has moved across your small window, changing the angle of the light in your room. You can see the shapes of your furniture now, the table, the chest, your children's sleeping forms. Your wife breathes quietly beside you. For all the poverty, for all the hardship, these moments of peace are real. You close your eyes again and let the sounds of Rome fade into background. Your body is tired, truly tired from a day of physical labor. Sleep comes easily. As you drift in and out of sleep, your mind wanders through the day's experiences, creating a patchwork of memory and dream. You think about the delicate balance you maintain every day, the balance between earning enough to feed your family and falling into the poverty that would mean losing everything. You're not wealthy, but you're also not at the bottom. You have a skill that provides income. Your children are healthy. Your apartment, while small and crowded, is shelter. You have enough to eat most days. By the standards of the Roman Empire, where millions live in conditions worse than yours, you're fortunate, but the margin is thin. An injury that prevented you from working could be disastrous. A serious illness, either yours or your wife's, could wipe out your savings in days and leave you unable to earn. The landlord could decide to double your rent, and you'd have no recourse except to move to a cheaper apartment, probably on a higher floor, in a more dangerous building. These fears are always there, lurking in the back of your mind. But you push them away because what good does worry do? You wake each day and do your work. You provide for your family. You maintain your place in the complex social network of your neighborhood because those relationships matter. When times are hard, it's your neighbors who might extend credit, share food, help with rent. You do the same for them when you can. You think about your children, sleeping peacefully now. Your son will learn your trade, probably taking over your workshop eventually. Your daughter will marry, hopefully to a decent man with a decent trade, and have children of her own. Neither will be rich or famous. Their lives will be variations of your life, working, eating, sleeping, finding what joy they can in small things. This is the reality for most people in Rome. Not the emperors and senators whose names history remembers, not the wealthy merchants and patricians who live in luxury. The masses of ordinary people, working their trades, raising their families, living their lives in insulae and workshops throughout the city. Your contribution to history is not memorable. You'll make copper pots and oil lamps that people will use and eventually discard. You'll raise children who will be equally unmemorable. When you die, perhaps in 20 or 30 years if you're fortunate, you'll be buried in a common grave outside the city walls, your name forgotten within a generation. But you are Rome, as surely as the emperors are. You and millions like you, working, living, dying in the great machine of the empire. The taxes you pay fund the armies and the aqueducts. The goods you produce, oil lamps, in your case, are used in homes throughout the city. Your children will become the next generation of workers, continuing the system. These thoughts aren't depressing to you. They're just the truth of existence. You don't expect more than this. You hope for good days and try to avoid bad ones. You love your family. You take pride in your work. You enjoy the simple pleasures available to you, the baths, conversations with friends, good food when you can afford it. This is enough. It has to be enough. The darkness is beginning to thin now. It's that ambiguous time before dawn when the sky starts to lighten but the sun hasn't yet appeared. This is the quietest part of the night. The cart traffic has diminished as drivers complete their deliveries. The drunks have found their way home. Even the rats seem quieter. You're awake again, though you're not sure why. Perhaps your body's internal clock, trained by years of waking at the same time, is telling you morning is approaching. Perhaps some sound disturbed you. Or perhaps it's just restlessness, the result of sleeping on a straw mattress that never quite becomes comfortable. Your wife sleeps on, Your children haven't stirred. For a few moments, the apartment is as peaceful as it ever gets. You lie still, reluctant to move and start the new day, wanting to stretch this moment of quiet a little longer. Through the window, you can see the sky brightening in the east. The buildings opposite are becoming visible as shapes rather than shadows. You can hear, very faintly, the first stirrings of the city waking. A rooster crow from somewhere, the distant call of a vendor, impossibly early, already hawking his wares. The creak of a shutter being opened. You know you should get up. The day is starting, and there's work to be done, the same work you did yesterday and will do tomorrow. More copper to hammer, more handles to rivet, more customers to satisfy. The cycle continues, day after day, season after season, year after year. But for this moment, you lie still, feeling your wife's warmth beside you, hearing your children's peaceful breathing, watching the dawn light slowly fill your small room. This moment, right now, is yours. Not working for the landlord or for customers, not struggling to survive, just being, existing in this small space you've carved out of the vast empire. The light grows stronger. You can see details now. The grain of the wooden table, the shape of the water jug, your work clothes hanging on their peg. The mundane objects of daily life, touched with dawn's gentle light, seem almost beautiful. You breathe deeply, slowly, letting the peace of the moment fill you. Then, as you know you must, you begin to rise. Another day is beginning in ancient Rome. As you sit up and put your feet on the floor, you think about continuity. This building you live in is relatively new, only 50 years old, but Rome itself has stood for nearly 1,000 years. Your ancestors lived here, going about their daily lives much as you do. They faced the same struggles, found the same joys. The Rome of legend, of Romulus and Remus, of the kings and early republic, is so far in the past it might as well be mythology. But it's the foundation of the city you inhabit. The Forum, where you shopped yesterday, was where Romans shopped 500 years ago. The temples where you occasionally offer prayers to the gods are ancient, rebuilt many times, but standing on sites that have been holy since the beginning. You're part of something larger than yourself, larger even than the sprawling city around you. You're part of the Roman world, an empire that stretches from the cold forests of Britain to the deserts of North Africa, from the Atlantic Ocean to the rivers of Mesopotamia. Roads built by Roman engineers connect you to places you'll never see. Laws made in Rome govern the lives of millions who don't speak Latin. Trade networks bring goods to your city from the ends of the known world. You understand that you benefit from this, even in your modest circumstances. The aqueducts that supply the public fountains are marvels of engineering. The public baths you use daily are luxury that would have been unimaginable to your distant ancestors. The peace enforced by Roman legions means you don't fear barbarian raids. The rule of law, however imperfect, means you have some recourse if you're cheated or robbed. These thoughts are too grand for so early in the morning, and you dismiss them. Your wife is stirring now. Your children will wake soon. There's water to be fetched, a fire to be lit, breakfast to be eaten, work to be done. You pull on your tunic, splash water on your face from the basin, and prepare to begin another day. As you do, outside your window, the sun finally breaks over the horizon, filling your room with golden light. Rome is waking. The streets are filling with people. The great machine of urban life is starting up once more. You are a coppersmith in Rome, circa 120 CE. Your life is hard, your prospects limited, your comforts few, but you endure. You work, you love your family, you do your best. This is your life. This is Rome. Conclusion. And so we end our day in ancient Rome. From dawn in a cramped Insula apartment to work in a modest workshop, from the bustle of the Forum to the relaxation of the public baths, we've experienced what daily life might have been like for an ordinary Roman citizen nearly 2,000 years ago. The details of this day, the bread and garum for breakfast, the afternoon at the Thermae, the evening conversations on a street corner. These were the realities that shaped the lives of millions. While emperors made grand gestures and armies conquered provinces, ordinary people lived their lives in ways that would be recognizable to any working person throughout history. Rome was a study in contrasts, magnificent temples alongside crowded slums, advanced engineering and terrible sanitation, democracy and slavery, legal rights and brutal inequality. It was a civilization that gave us roads and aqueducts, law and literature, and yet treated human lives as commodities to be bought and sold. The Rome we've visited tonight is not the Rome of Hollywood epics or history textbooks. It's smaller, grimier, more human. It's the Rome of sweat and bread, of tired backs and simple pleasures, of family and survival. It's the Rome where most Romans actually lived. As you drift off to sleep now, in your own time, in your own comfortable bed, you might spare a thought for that anonymous coppersmith in his Insula apartment, and for the millions like him whose names are forgotten but whose labor built an empire that still echoes through our world today. Thanks for joining me tonight on the Sleep Archive. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment telling me what historical period you'd like to explore next. Sleep well, and good night.